Hello everyone, this is Rob Kainz from Order of the One Guitar Player. This is kind of going to be a nerdy video because I'm going to take you through the project somewhat for Masked Man, so you can kind of see the process that I used for getting the guitar tones that I use. I don't use any profile or anything, so I'm doing everything the old-fashioned natural way, using real amplifiers, real cabinets, real microphones, record, mix the microphones, and then process the signal from there. So I'm kind of going to take you through what I do to get those tones. So one of the key differences, I think, between Order of the One and other, and there's of course a bunch of differences in other bands, is that the two of us, Matt and I, pretty much handle the process end to end for writing and recording and producing a finished product. And Ryan pitches in as well. He writes the drum parts and sends us mix-ready drum tracks, which are fantastic, which don't require hardly any changes. And we're able to incorporate that in and come up with the finished songs. So back in 2018, I was inspired at John Petrucci's Guitar Universe. I went there, had a great time for 4 days up in New York. I decided, been wanting to get back into music for a while. So when I got back from that, I started a cover band called Agent Mulder with a few others, local musicians, and we started playing out for a couple of years. And, after a while, my tone just wasn't cutting it. And the bass player, Jeff Cunningham, mentioned that. And he said, basically told me I need new gear because the Axe FX2 just wasn't cutting it through, through my cabinet. So I didn't want to admit it, but I finally had to admit it. And then I decided from that point forward, I love John Petrucci's guitar tone, and that's kind of a great guitar tone, and I don't want to have to reinvent the wheel. So I ended up, following in his footsteps. Got me a JP2C Mesa head, a Mesa cabinet, and some nice microphones to record it. And went on that line. I have this laminated here. It's basically Petrucci settings, which I use when I'm recording and playing live. So around that time, after Agent Mulder broke up, I ended up meeting Matt Presti a few years later, and that's a long story in and of itself, but once we decided to start working together and writing music, we both massively updated our recording studios. New gear, new software, new plugins, new computers, the whole shebang, and it was quite an expense, but we wanted to control the whole process from end to end, recording everything at high quality. So that was what we were planning to do. And at a high level, what I have, you can see I've got a 7-string John Petrucci Monarchy guitar, which I use for all the OOTO recordings so far, but I do have other guitars that I hope to use one day. I use the Fractal VP4 unit just for effects, and basically for the tube screamer effect, I use the 4-cable method so that the amp tone is really preserved. For the recordings, I use delays, plug-in delays, on the computer, so I don't use VP4 effects for recording. That's just for performing live. Microphones, I've bought a Aurora 121, which is a must-have. I also bought the Mojave 301, which is a mic they used to record. I think it was on the Astonishing record, Dream Theater, when they recorded that. And I used an SM57 as well to capture my guitar tone. So you can see how this cabinet is still mic'd the same way that it was when I recorded Masked Man, reamped the guitars a few weeks ago. So I end up recording, and when I record, I record the output from the cab clone of the amp, but I also record the raw signal before it even goes into the amp. So the raw signal is used later to run it back through a reamper and back through the rig, so that at a later time I can reamp everything together once all the final guitar tracks are done and any edits that are in there. Then I can reamp everything and all in one shot and get a great sounding guitar tones of those recordings, and then mix the microphones together. So I use those 3 microphones, so I mix the 3 signals together to get the final mix for each channel, and I double the guitars for left and right for the rhythm tracks. And for part of the leads, one of the leads was doubled left and right, the one that we call the Doctor Who theme, affectionately. So, and then of course, I used Logic Pro. I used an M1 MacBook Pro in the past, but I recently upgraded it to an M5 to do the final mixing and mastering for Masked Man. Have an old reamper from the 90s, which I've been using ever since. I tried a new one, but it, more expensive one, but I returned it because it really didn't make any substantial difference. So no artificial intelligence was used in the art at any time as far as, recording or pitch correcting or anything like that. So we only used it to make wise engineering decisions, because although I've done some recording for bands back in the 90s, in Blacksburg, Virginia, Richmond, and the Raleigh area, I didn't, didn't consider myself a pro, but just a talented amateur. So it was great to learn everything else I could from AI. And I have to give a shout out to mastering.com. I definitely watched their compression tutorial out there. That was fantastic videos on there. And I use as a reference their book here. There's great stuff in here. And I created some additional pages in there from that mastering course on compression, which I thought were missing from that book, which are very, very helpful. So anyhow, thought I would talk about the process here and show you the tracks, the raw tracks, the microphone mix tracks, the final mix, and the EQ settings in my plug-in chain that I use to get the tone that I get. So for anyone who's interested. So I do use Total Mix to handle the audio routing. So you can see it right here. I've got a couple of settings here. I've got one for tracking guitar. I've got one for reamp guitar. And OOTO Collab, which is what I'm using right now to record this video. And I use Logic. And I'm going to show you the gallop tracks from the verse here. So we'll go ahead, and I'm going to put these headphones on so that I can hear what I'm playing here. And I'm going to go ahead and pull up the raw guitar tracks. So these are the raw tracks, the left and right. This is what the signal sounds like before any processing is put on. So you can hear it's not too exciting. So that's the left and the right sides here tracked. Okay, and it's just looping. So once I record those, and it actually records the cab clone mix as well, so we can listen to the cab clone mix here a little bit. So it sounds well enough to use while Matt and I are writing songs and trading files back and forth. And but once we record those tracks, the raw tracks, we reamp them. We run it through the reamper, run it back through everything. Basically, we're playing the tracks in Logic and then re-recording them to different tracks. And okay, this is the guitar solo. So I'm going to show you here we go. So here's the verse, left and right tracks. So these are the original microphone tracks here. And here. So I'll record these three microphone tracks first, and then I'll just right click and bounce them up here into a new track, which is the final mix track. So I can bounce this track across the whole project so that you can see that it got all of these for a whole section here. And so if we want to listen to the microphone tracks themselves, we can listen to the left and right one. This is the So the signal is lower here for the MA301, so I used that lower in the mix, and I brought it down an additional 10 dBs. So you can see here that it's at -10. The other ones are at unity gain. So when I play this, you can hear. So if we just want to listen to like one side here, this is the left side, and we can hear the mics individually. So this is what the 121 sounds like by itself. This is what the SM57 sounds like by itself. So you can hear it's got more high end and the bite to it. And this is mixed extremely low in the MA301. And that's mostly due to a problem when I recorded. So,
scare my fear.
So you play them all together, you get this. And so it still needs additional EQing to get rid of the boominess and to shape the tone better. So once we get the mix, we have the microphone mixes for each side, the left and the right, and they play through this guitar mix plug-in chain right here. And so I'm doing some EQ work here at the beginning, so you can see a bunch of EQ work here. I have a dynamic EQ here, which controls the chug, so that as you're chugging on the guitar, playing the palm mutes and stuff, you can get rid of the excessive boominess there. So it controls it to some degree. It doesn't get rid of it entirely, but it does do a pretty good job.
Rise to face the day. I'll scare my
so
fears
if I take all these plugins off,
to live inside the crowd,
that's what it sounds like.
to live beneath
So if I start adding them, here's the first EQ.
enter through the door. You are a hero, no. Rise to face the
Maybe
day. I'll
turn off the
scare
vocals
my
for a second.
fears away.
Starting that.
To live in.
Okay, so the second EQ here just does a little more tonal shaping, brings up some of the highs here, and controls some of the bass frequencies again, or the lower mids. So I use Saturn as well for some additional saturation, and then a compressor, an additional tape machine. So I can solo this so you can hear. So here again, it's without. And then with. Down here we have a plate reverb and delay. Wait a second. So no, it's just routing to the instrument mix and a plate reverb. So there's a very subtle like plate reverb on here, used as a glue to glue it together in the mix with the bass and the vocals. Bring it all back together, and that's what we have with the guitars. So there are a number of things to remember when I have to run through this process. You know, some I'll just mention them here so that if I need to remember them the next time I do this. So whenever I track guitars, I have to shut all the stuff on the mastering chain off. Otherwise, I will get some horrendous latency issues. There's also a setting, you can't really see the menu here, but under the record menu, there's a setting called low latency monitoring mode, which has to be turned on. Let's see, some of the other things to remember on this. Also, put your computer on focus mode and make sure you turn off Time Machine as well. Those are all helpful things to do. But yeah, the key is really to shut these plugins off, turn it on low latency mode, and then also make sure you set these correctly. The buffer needs to be set to 64 when you're recording. And process buffer range I had on medium, and then multi-threading playback and live tracks. So that summarizes all the changes in Logic that I needed for that. So let's look at the Doctor Who guitar solo here. So if we turn off all the effects here and just listen to the raw guitar tone without any of this processing for the, let's hear what it sounds like. So when we start turning this stuff back on, now that's without the delays right now, but in this chain I added Soothe 2 as a plugin. The reason is because when you hit high frequency notes on the guitar and the high strings, you can get some really piercing sounds, that can really pierce your ears at high levels when you listen to it. So I tamed frequencies between 2 and 8K here by 3 decibels about. And maybe I should have gone a little deeper than that, but it still made a substantial difference at high volumes, making it easier to listen to. I didn't do that for any of the rhythms because I really want the nice live crunchy rhythms in there. So I found out here that I had the bloom delay and the micro pitch delay on at the same time for one of the two channels here, but not the other. That wasn't intentional. I made a mistake on that for the main mix, but it's all good. So now you can hear what it sounds like with the delays when I'll add them in. This one is a vocal plate, or it's a reverb plate that. Here, I'll turn that on first. So I use that as glue to help, the guitar solos and guitar rhythms kind of sound like they're in a room with the other instruments, like the vocals and the bass. So anyhow, so now I'm going to enable the bloom delay on this. I might as well enable the bloom delay on both of them. So you can hear that, but we added additional delay here, so I'm going to turn that on now. And the actual recording had this one off, so if we want to hear that in the mix. So these are the two delays that I used. This one was used, it was actually created in the micropitch plugin for one of the older songs for the Holy Trail, but it sounded really good on the Doctor Who part, so I just turned that one on. And this one was modeled after Andy Sneap's bloom delay that was used on the Parasomnia album that Dream Theater recorded, which is a great album as far as production goes. It's still, even music-wise, it's a great album. But I love the guitar tones on that album, and that's really kind of what I was shooting for. So I used Dream Theater as my reference. So I used a plugin here called Reference 2 that used some Dream Theater tracks here. Like I have Night Terror, Dead Asleep, and Bend the Clock, for various different parts of the songs as references. And so Andy Sneap, I think he also plays guitar like on tour with Judas Priest, but man, what an engineer he is. And I modeled the delay after what he did on Parasomnia as best as I could, but I used it a little more subtly than I think than he might have. But fantastic engineer. But yeah, that's pretty much the process that I go through in doing this, and it's very time consuming, as you can see. But it takes hours to reamp and then to mix everything down. So one thing I didn't mention is that when I mix down the microphone tracks, when I mix them together, I also phase align them using a plugin called Auto Align 2. Let's go to the first part here. So if I have the microphone mixes here, what I'll do is I'll add Auto Align 2 to them. This is kind of an important step, so I figure I should mention it. So when you add Auto Align 2, you can play the song, it'll take all of these, and it'll add the necessary delay for each track so that all the microphones are in phase. And that really does, in this case, really make it a lot more punchy, really. And so critical step when you're doing the mixing is to make sure they're phase aligned. All right, guys, that's all I have to share. I hope you appreciated it, and you can see how time intensive, how expensive this whole process is to create a really quality finished product. A lot of hours go into it, and it's all pure joy, though. We love it. But I hope you continue to support us in the future with other music that we have coming out, and hope that we'll be able to tour someday. Thank you.